Hello and welcome to today's CUGC Connect. My name is Stephanie Boozer. I am with CUGC HQ and I am happy to welcome ControlUp here today and Yoni Avital, the CTO and co-founder of ControlUp. I know we're getting a first look at 7.2 and I'm excited to see what all we have in store for us today. But before we get started, I want to introduce our moderator. Christopher Schrameyer is a leader of our Northern Indiana CUGC group, and he's also a Citrix technology advocate. He's going to keep an eye on all of your questions today, so please do go ahead and type those into the question box as you have them. We'll try to get to them at various points throughout the presentation and through the demos, and we may save some for the end. So like I said, go ahead and type them in and we'll get to as many of those as we can. Chris, do you want to say hello really quickly?
Hello, everyone. Again, if you have any questions, get them in the chat window and we'll get them to Yoni to get them answered for you. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right, Yoni, I am going to send the screen your way to get us started, so look out for that. Here it comes.
Hey guys. Hey Stephanie. Hey Chris. I already learned something from this one. I learned how to properly pronounce Chris' last name, so I'm good. Hopefully you guys will learn something as well today. Okay, so hey guys, Yoni here. Super excited to show you 7.2. I think it's you guys are going to have a blast. It's a really special build with some nice nice features, including enhancements to existing ones and new features. So stay tuned. The agenda, as usual, will be mainly focused around live demos. I will cover 2 intro slides just for the sake of newcomers, but we'll mainly focus on the actual new features in 7.2. In addition to 7.2 features, I'm also going to highlight 2 new reports we have in ControlUp Insights. I think you will find them really interesting. They have tons of value for any end user computing environment out there. So stay tuned for the last part as well. So quickly about us, we've been out there since 2011, providing value for, I would say, anyone managing an end user computing environment or any virtual environment for that sake. We have grown quite rapidly over the years. We are now nearing the 100 employees mark, which is really, a proud moment for me as well. Our HQ is in Silicon Valley. That has been the case since 2016. And all the really, hardworking guys are actually here in Israel. So sorry, Silicon Valley guys, that's the facts. Lots of customers, quick adoption. We see huge names joining in every month, which is great. And finally, I think one of the most important aspects to ControlUp, and one of the reasons we see such a quick adoptions out there in the market, is the fact that we provide really fast time to value with a very simple deployment. Okay, and hopefully you guys will agree with me. And let me try to explain why. Why the value is coming in really fast. So this is a high-level overview of the ControlUp real-time environment. Okay, so the lower part would be the customer environment, and the upper part would be our own Amazon-hosted cluster. So a quick overview, and then we'll jump into the live demos. So this is probably the main component, the ControlUp real-time console. This is a .NET executable anyone can download from our website, launch it in his own network, obviously, usually on a Windows server. And this console will directly connect to all the various objects we can manage and monitor. This includes basically any Windows box, whether it's a physical server, a virtual server running on top of VMware, Hyper-V, whatnot, and obviously all the various VDI solutions out there. We fully support Citrix, RDS, Synapse, and desktop, all the way up to CentOS 7.19 or whatever the latest version is these days. We support the other vendors. We also recently introduced connections to the public cloud IaaS services. So currently we support Amazon EC2. We do plan to add support for Azure at some point. The other major component located at the customer site would be the ControlUp Monitor service. This is usually running on a dedicated Windows server, and one of its primary functions is to continuously upload data to our historical reporting database located on Amazon. This is where ControlUp Insights kick in. This will be part of the live demo during the end of the presentation, where we'll demo the latest analytics reports. Okay, if you guys have any other questions about the topology, the ports, the system requirements, just shoot us an email to support@controlup.com, and we'll cover you guys. So some customers obviously cannot work with the cloud-based service, whether it's for compliance reasons or any other reason. We do offer a fully supported on-prem deployment mode. The lower part looks the same, but obviously the customer will now host his ControlUp environment locally, which includes mainly the ControlUp on-premises server and the ControlUp Insights server. So again, it's fully supported, working with on-prem environments. We just released Insights on-premises 3.0 for the on-prem customers out there. So good news. Okay, so quickly moving into the live demos part, right? So as promised, we'll start with 7.2 and we'll take it from there. Okay, so you should see on screen right now the ControlUp 7.2, the 7.2 version. By the way, before we dive into the actual feature set, just a quick update on the current state of 7.2. So the version you see here, 7.2.0.131, this is actually our public beta build. So this is already being run on multiple beta customers. I think more than like 20 or 30 customers are running it in production right now. Anyone who wants to test 7.2 and is not part of the beta list, simply send an email to support@controlup.com and request to be added to the program. We'll send you the download link with all the instructions. Okay, we do expect 7.2 to become publicly available in 2 or 3 weeks from now. Okay, so a quick high-level overview of the ControlUp real-time console before diving into 7.2 features, again, for the sake of newcomers. On the left side here, you will see the tree containing all the managed objects, everything we can actually manage and monitor with ControlUp. This includes the hypervisors. Okay, and here we have a brand new addition in 7.2, and that would be the Nutanix hypervisor. We now fully support Acropolis. Hey, Keith, yeah, that's happened finally. So we do support Nutanix right now, and I'll show it in a minute. Below the hypervisors, we can see the cloud connections. Currently, we support Amazon. So if any of you out there has any, EC2 instances, you can connect ControlUp there and get the data directly from EC2. We have a direct API integration with Zen Desktop. Okay, so we can essentially connect ControlUp to the Zen Desktop brokers, and using a combination of the PowerShell and No Data APIs, we can get data about VDAs, user sessions, and since 7.1, we also support enumerating published app data and usage. Another extension we added in 7.1 was the Netscaler appliance. We actually have some new features in 7.2, so we'll get there soon, but we fully support real-time monitoring of the Netscaler appliances. And finally, the Windows boxes themselves, right? So we support, as I mentioned, anything, whether it's, domain controllers, SQL servers, PVS servers, and obviously all the relevant VMware and Citrix VDI solutions. Okay, now once ControlUp is connected to all of these devices, the real-time console will populate the real-time views you see in here. So you will see hosts in this view. All the virtual machines will be listed in here. Live user sessions currently connected to your environment, all the way up to live process data, right, with actual real-time metrics and metadata. And we have other views for the storage integrations, Netscalers, etc. So this is ControlUp real-time in a nutshell. We obviously support real-time remediation with our own built-in actions and script-based actions. And again, if someone would like to get a more in-depth demo, just contact us and we'll do that. Okay, so without further ado, let's start with the actual 7.2 showcase. So probably the first thing you will notice is that we provide some major enhancements to the Virtual Expert module. Now, the Virtual Expert is all about enhancing the troubleshooting capabilities with ControlUp and making it much easier and more intuitive to find the root cause of issues. let's start with our usual example. We have here an ESXi box with high IO usage. In 7.2, when you click on the problematic cell, this new pop-up screen will be displayed with some interesting stats about the issue. Okay, so we'll see, since when this metric has actually crossed the red threshold, and here you will see the suggestions for further navigation to actually pinpoint the root cause. So that's a nice addition to the virtual experts. Now I'm going to double-click this specific cell, and when I'm doing that, quite a few things have happened right now. So first, a new addition in 7.2 would be the new virtual expert bar, which basically tell me, hey, we are now investigating this high IO usage on ES601. That's first. In addition to that, we have automatically drilled down to the VMs running on this box, and ControlUp automatically created the custom preset, which shows all the relevant metrics, and it's also highlighting the one metric which we think is the most relevant for this specific scenario. Okay, so it's really clear from a UI perspective what's going on in here. It's automatically sorted, automatically selecting the relevant columns, which is really great. Okay, I can now move on and drill down to the next tier. And again, ControlUp will highlight for me what I'm looking on right now, what I'm investigating, and it will again highlight for me the next drill down phase. In this case, it's my session, and it's the IO read metric consuming all the showing, this is the session consuming all the IO usage on this host. And finally, I can drill down to the processes view, and again, we will highlight the offending. We will sort the grid based on the offending process, and we will highlight what we think is the most relevant column for a troubleshooting effort. Okay, so that's I think it's much more intuitive to actually troubleshoot issues these days. And I do want to show you what's the actual settings behind this feature. Okay, so we have added a new feature setting in 7.1 called contextual navigation. This is the engine behind the virtual export concept we have just seen. Okay, so in here you can see all the predefined contextual navigation or virtual expert drill downs you have seen me using. Let's look on the examples we actually use. Okay, so I'm going to switch to the host view. And if you remember, the specific column we drilled down into was the data store read-write IOPS. So if I'm going to edit this, by the way, this is a community-based rule. You can see it based on the small icon in here. Actually, all of these rules are out-of-the-box community-based rules. Okay. Now, if we edit this one, you can see what's happening behind the scenes, right? So basically, we are telling ControlUp that when anyone is drilling down into this specific column in here, this would be the next view to present. This would be the column preset we're going to use, and this is the sort by column. Okay, and you guys as customers can go ahead and add your own rules, to match your own scenarios. But I do recommend working with the out-of-the-box auto-updated rules, because that's something we do based on data we see coming in from multiple customers. Okay, so that's the engine behind the virtual experts. This is some of the use cases. I do want to go back to the host view, and I want to show you two.
Hey Yoni?
Oh yeah, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I just had a couple quick questions. I thought
Sure.
This would be a good time since you just went over it. The community-based navigation rules, are they available for on-premise and cloud editions?
Yes, so for cloud editions for sure. For on-prem, we do have like a built-in package for on-prem customers. We are planning to make the whole on-prem updates process much simpler. We're going to add like a monthly updates packages. So it's in the works, but currently, if you'll go ahead and install ControlUp on-prem 7.1, you will get the built-in navigation rules. Yeah.
Okay. And you said you can add your own and they're community-based. If you add your own, can you share it with the community like you can when you create, I believe it's when you create scripts, you can share them and upload them. Can you do that with this as well?
Great question. So unfortunately, right now, you can only create your own rules. You can't really share it with the community, but that's a great feedback, and we'll see. If we see customers asking to share their own great navigation rules, we'll definitely consider adding the option to share them with the community. So
Okay.
currently it's not supported.
Okay, and a couple more here since we've got a little break here. A lot of questions about cloud connectors. You know, will 7.2 support Citrix Cloud? You know, if your deployment is in the cloud versus on-prem for Citrix Zen App or Zen Desktop.
Yeah. Okay. So let me try and answer that. So currently, our Zen Desktop integration feature currently supports the on-prem Zen Desktop sites. Citrix Cloud is utilizing a whole new API set, which became available just recently. So it's part of our roadmap, and we will add support for that. But currently, it's not supported. But I do want to mention that, you know, even if you're using Citrix Cloud as your management control plane, ControlUp obviously still supports all the VDAs, all the agent-based data. So I would say, you know, 90% of the value is there, and we are working on the Citrix Cloud integration for future releases.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So two more things I wanted to share you guys in regards to Virtual Expert before we move on. Again, we're looking on the host view here, and we actually enhance the stress level and scoring column auto expand behavior. So no matter where you are located in the real-time views, in 7.2, when you double click the stress level, we will do two things. First, we will clear the view and we will only show you the actual, you know, the actual entity you want to look at. And secondly, we will show you all the columns that are actually contributing to the stress. Okay, so this is a quick way to figure out why any of the entities you're seeing are currently in a high or critical stress. Okay, so again, let me show what it looks like. Double click on the stress level will automatically show you the relevant metrics and will clear the list to just the entity you selected. So that's one, you know, pretty cool UI enhancement. The other one relates to the new scoring columns we added in 7.1. So let me switch to the host scores preset. So when you use the scoring columns, it's kind of like a cleaner, more summarized view, because instead of, for example, showing you 10 different IO-related metrics, you have one D-score. Okay. Now, the D-score expansion works just like the stress level. So I can go ahead and you know, highlight the CPU score, which is, this case is red, and double click on that, and ControlUp will show me all the relevant CPU-related metrics that are contributing to the CPU score. Okay, so these are two kind of like auto expansion, column auto expansion features, which are part of the virtual expert concept, which I think will make troubleshooting much more intuitive and easier. Okay, so that's enough for now regarding the virtual expert concept in 7.2. Hopefully you find that interesting. I do want to move on to the Nutanix integration. So we just happen to have a Nutanix cluster in here. Let me go ahead and focus on this. So first, in regards to how it works, right? It's really similar to the vSphere Zen server concept we have in ControlUp, in the sense that no agents are involved. ControlUp is simply pointed to the Nutanix SDK web service, like the example you see on screen right now, and you have to supply, you know, valid credentials, and that's pretty much it. So once this is configured, ControlUp will start communicating with the Nutanix Acropolis APIs. Let me just focus here on the cluster itself. Okay, and once we do that, we do get all the, you know, the full data about the hypervisors and about the Nutanix VMs. Okay, so essentially it's the same set of metrics we have for vSphere and Hyper-V and Zen server. You can see it on screen right now, including, you know, the metadata, the real-time performance metrics, etc. One of the cool things we added here is the ability to actually enable or disable a maintenance mode for each Nutanix host. This is currently not available in Prism, so it's a nice addition for anyone managing Nutanix cluster. And the same is true, obviously, for the VMs themselves, right? So you have the power management and everything else the API can be used for. One last note regarding the Nutanix integration is the fact that you can also see and manage the CVM virtual machines, right? So on each Nutanix host, you have a CVM management VM, and it's also exposed in here, and you can go ahead and run actions or just monitor the VM in real time. So I can already tell you now that from the beta feedback, we have excellent feedback on the Nutanix integration. And again, anyone who is currently managing Nutanix or is planning to migrate from vSphere or whatnot, keep in mind that 7.2 includes full support for this new hypervisor. Okay, so I'm now going to cover a few other features in 7.2. I think you will find them very interesting. Some of them were features that were, for long have been requested by our audience, so I'm really happy to share them with you. Let's start with the new advanced trigger. So for the longest time, we had a dependency on the stress level column for various incident triggers, right? So up until 7.2, the only way to actually create incident triggers for anything related to performance metrics was to go through the stress level incident trigger type. Now, obviously, it's it can be done, but it can be rather complex for all kinds of scenarios. So what we did in 7.2, we actually added a new incident trigger type. It's called Advanced, which might be a bit misleading, but it does actually support both a simple mode and an advanced mode for all kinds of incident triggers. So let me show you a few examples I prepared for this demo here. Let's start with a simple example. Logical distress, oh sorry, this one here, C drive less than 5%, right? So this is utilizing the new advanced trigger type. Let me show you the actual setting here. There you go. So essentially the way this trigger type works is you can configure a from configuration and to configuration. Whenever you want to utilize the simple option, just ignore the from state, leave it in any state, and just work with the two-state screen in here. Okay, in this case, you can see a very simple trigger looking on the % free space logical disk metric, and whenever it's equal or below 5%, and the disk name is the C drive, this guy is going to fire up and create an incident. Okay, so no longer we're depending on the stress level. We can do this for any metric you want, whether it's CPU, IO, network, whatnot, and we can easily configure incident triggers for single metric based scenarios. And obviously you can use the the additional filtering to narrow down the incident trigger conditions. Okay, so that's one simple example. The same is true for any other entity. Okay, in this case, you can see I've configured a simple trigger that will fire whenever someone is logging on and his login duration is higher than 60 seconds. Okay, so no additional, super simple, no additional conditions. Whenever someone will log onto your environment, and it will take you more than 1 minute to actually cross the logon phase, we will fire a trigger in here. And the last example I wanted to show you is a bit more complex, but I think it's a decent example because it shows you how we can use the new incident trigger type to actually work around some more complex use cases. Okay, so in this case, we're doing the following. We're actually looking on specific VDAs who were registered and at some point switched to an unregistered state. Okay, now the reason we're doing this is because there are many, I would say, partially valid scenarios when VDAs can be unregistered. Let's say the machine just booted up and it's unregistered for any kind of reason. This is not something you're looking into. You're actually more interested in properly working VDAs who were in the registered state and then switch to an unregistered state. And this trigger will basically capture that scenario. Okay, and this is just one example. You can use this new trigger type to do pretty much whatever you want. Another important note here is that unlike the stress level trigger type, we don't only support performance metrics, we also support text-based metrics, just like you see in here. Okay, so in this case, this is not a performance metric, it's a text-based column, and we can use this to fire up an incident trigger. Okay, so I think this new trigger type will cover most of the use cases we have heard from customers over the last couple of years. We are planning to add some community triggers that will be used this new advanced trigger type. So keep watching for this once you upgrade to 7.2. And yeah, I think this is a great addition to the existing feature. Okay, so moving on to another, I don't want to offend any developers, but I'm moving on to one of my favorite features in 7.2, maybe because I was partly involved in that. But in 7.2, we actually added some new metrics for the processes entity. Okay, so these are the new columns we added in here, and in 7.2, for the first time, we can now show you guys the network usage and disk I/O usage on a per process level. Okay, now don't get me wrong, before 7.2 we did have these two guys in here, the I/O read and write per second. The thing is that this is a cumulative or kind of like an aggregated column which includes both network and disk. Okay, so for example, if you have a browser watching a video, it would be shown in here, just the same as an Excel spreadsheet currently writing a lot of I/O to disk. Now in 7.2 we have separated metrics for each process. And let me show you a quick example I prepared in here. So we have a trailer, a 4K trailer running here inside iExplore. Let me go ahead and filter the view specifically for iExplore. So what you will see in here, you will see in real time the relevant Internet Explorer process. You will see that the network sent data will start to grow, obviously, and you can see again from you can see the separation from a disk and I/O perspective. Okay, and if you combine this with our browser URL feature, obviously you get a really powerful tool to figure out not just what's causing a high network usage, but also what's let's play another one in here. Yeah, okay. So it's a very powerful troubleshooting tool for any network or disk related issue, right? Because we see in real time the network usage, and then again, in case of a browser, we can correlate this with the currently running URL. Okay, and the same is true for disk. Okay, we can always filter this view based on disk and see what's going on right now. Okay, so again, a new addition in 7.2. It's obviously supported, it's integrated with the new advanced triggers. So if you think about it, you guys can now configure a trigger that will fire whenever a specific process is utilizing more than, I don't know, 50 megabytes per second of network usage. Okay. Chris, so any questions on the new advanced trigger or the process IOPS new columns here?
Yes, we have a few here. One question, and this we've spoken about before. Is it possible to set up a threshold on a certain application? For example, if it jumps over 15% CPU usage, can it auto throttle? So what they're asking is, you've got these triggers. Is it on the roadmap to then add actions besides just notification?
Okay, I see what you mean. So you're referring to what we call the automated action features. Yeah. Okay, so let me try and explain where we're at and where we're going with this. So currently in 7.2 we do not support automated actions, but the good news is that we are starting to progress there, and I can actually show you the major step we took towards automated actions. So we know the value with adding support for automated actions. This is something we hear for customers for a long time, and we figured that before we actually implement automated actions, we have to provide the proper centralized auditing feature. So for admins it will be easy to see who launched what where to get the full data. So in 7.2, those of you with the keen eye, the keen eyes will see a new settings called audit log. This is our first implementations of the new centralized auditing engine. It's still experimental in 7.2. It's not covering all the actions yet. But the reason I'm showing you this is because this is the first step towards the automated action feature, right? So once we'll complete the centralized auditing feature, Hopefully it will be in 7.3. The next step would be to support automated actions, which will lead to the scenario described, right? So basically what we're planning is to expand the incident triggers mechanism and enable customers to attach not only alerts to triggers, but also attach built-in actions and script-based actions. And that will be fully audited by the centralized auditing feature. And I think it's going to be a huge thing for customers. So it's in the roadmap, it's planned, so stay tuned. We will share ETAs once we have them.
Awesome. Another question, with the new disk and network metrics, the example you showed in Internet Explorer, can you find out exactly what tab and or website is causing the issue? So I believe you showed where, if you have Internet Explorer open and you have 3 tabs, does that show as 3 different Explorers? Is that how you would determine what tab?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, let me try and demo this. So let me pause this browser here, and let's go to trying to think about a website that will generate lots of IO, which is not YouTube. I know what. Let's go to CUGC. That's an interesting website. Oops, that's not the one. Sorry. Yeah. So if you go here, and I will play one of the, if we have video in here or something, you will see in here. You will see in here the actual URL on screen. Okay, so if, for example, for some reason the My CUGC website is the culprit, consuming lots of network IO, you will see it correlated with the metric and the actual URL name. Yeah.
And they're asking, will the disk IO also report tabs in Chrome, not just IE?
Okay, that's a good question. Unfortunately, no, we do not support Chrome browser URL yet. The thing is that Chrome is it's a very protected browser, and unfortunately, Google has not exposed any decent APIs we can use. We keep trying to do that, but currently it's not supported. So currently we only support iExplore for the browser URL display.
Okay, and then one more question, the most requested question. Can you show us how to set the background to be the old original black?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I'm not sure if we exposed this in the UI in 7.2, but at any rate, anyone will go ahead and simply search in Google for ControlUp color theme. You will get to an external KB article that will list the registry key. We have a current user-based registry key. You can configure, restart the console, and you'll go back to the classic.
Yoni, go to the setting, and it's there, color.
Oh, right. I wasn't actually aware of that. Where is that, Amir? Can you point me here? Display
in the display.
Oh, okay, right.
There it is.
There you go. So this will be, unless the record show for, it's an historical event where the VP of sales told the CTO about a new feature. Thank you, Amir. Yeah, there you go. So we exposed this in the UI. You can go ahead and change that. Anyone who's missing the good old previous theme.
Excellent. And one more question. Sorry, another one popped up, but this is a good question. The IE processes that you showed, where it showed the IE and what website they were going to, is any of that captured or can be searched through Citrix Insight for historical purposes?
Yeah. Okay. So the data is being collected. We have yet to expose actual ControlUp Insights reports for this data. So it's like, I guess the answer is currently not, but it's in the roadmap for Insights, right? So we have the ability to collect historical data. We are planning a few reports around that, like most popular websites and the most top consumers, IO CPU websites, but it's just not supported yet, but we do have the data in place.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so one more feature, one last feature actually I wanted to show you guys in regards to 7.2 is some of the enhanced work we have done regarding the Netscaler feature. Okay, so first something we heard from quite a few customers who integrated Netscaler in 7.1 was to add support for the HA related components. Okay, so as you can see here, we have two new like default columns for the Netscaler object that shows the system state and the node state, whether it's a primary or not. And if you go to manage columns in here, you can actually see a few other HA related columns we added in here. Just a sec. Oh, I'm not in the proper view. Let me go here. Okay, so we can see all of these are readily available Netscaler high availability columns we added in 7.2, and you can add them to the default preset, based on your, I guess, preferences. So this is one addition to Netscaler in 7.2. The other one, which I think is pretty useful, is new built-in actions we added for load balancers. You can go ahead and actually enable or disable load balancers from the ControlUp UI, okay, which is pretty cool. And finally, we did a lot of work with Esther Bartlett, who is one of the Citrix CDPs, and she's a pretty decent Netscaler expert. So if you go to the script-based actions store and just search for Netscaler, you will see quite a few scripts available in here. You can download them and use them in your own environment, and most of them are installed in my environment. You can see a few examples in here, like getting additional stats regarding the SSL certificates and some other actions. For example, license details. You can go ahead and run that, and these are stats we do not expose via the real-time columns, so you can simply use the SBA to have like a central location to get some more in-depth Netscaler data. Okay, so again, a new HA columns for Netscaler, new actions for load balancers, an expanded list of publicly available script-based actions. Okay, so I'm moving on to insights right now. If there are any additional questions on the real-time console, please let's do them in a few more minutes. I do want to go back in here. Yeah, Chris, if you see something like which you think is really interesting, you can go ahead and ask it right now. And if not, we'll just start with the insights, the new insights reports.
Just a quick one while this is loading. Is it on the roadmap to monitor any other load balancers such as F5?
F5, wow, that's a good question. So honestly, right now we didn't get a lot of requests for F5, I have to say. We definitely discussed this before, but so currently no. But I'm really asking the guy who requested this, please go ahead and send like an official feature request so we can get this into the backlog. But currently it's not on the roadmap. Okay, so two new reports I wanted to cover with you guys. I think you will find them super valuable for your environment. The first one is actually the sizing recommendations, and the other one is the assessment report I'm loading right now. This is a pretty massive report, a new report based on 1 month worth of data. So it might take a while to initially load. It can even take up to like 2 minutes. We are working on this performance issue. So in a few months, it's going to be much quicker, but I just want to make sure it's loaded so we can visit this in a few minutes.
While that's loading,
yeah, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Got a couple quick ones for you.
Yeah.
We had a couple questions about Linux integration.
Yeah.
Can you discuss any plans for that?
Yeah, for sure. So the good news is that we are working on Linux integration as we speak, right? So we are actually planning to add Linux integration in 7.3, which is the next release planned for Q3 timeframe. We're going to add support for in-guest Linux metrics. It's going to be pretty cool. You will be able to drill down into any Linux server and see real-time process data. So it's coming in 7.3, which I think is great news for anyone who asked that.
And also on the Netscaler, question about monitoring user connections through it. So for example, could you see who is connecting via the Netscaler versus someone on-prem that's not, hitting it?
Yeah, okay, so that's a decent question. So we have two options to actually showcase this, right? So one would be on the Netscaler view itself. We have a tab called HDX Sessions. So what you will see in here, and again, if you have more than one Netscaler device in place, you can simply go to the HDX Sessions flat view, and you will see here a list of all the user sessions that are currently being proxied via the Netscaler gateway. Okay, so that's one way to do it. The other way is to actually look on it from the Zen Desktop site perspective. And if you look on the sessions view, we actually have columns that will show you the connected via and launch via host name. Okay, so you can see here whether it's coming in from storefront or from something else. So this can also be used to see where the user is coming from. Okay, so again, either use the sessions view, connected via, and launch via, or use the Netscaler HDX sessions screen.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's loaded. I do want to start with the sizing recommendation actually. So this is by far one of my favorite new reports and insights. Okay, what we have in here is a really cool data set. Again, just like the sizing, just like the environment assessment, this is based on 1 month worth of data. And what we're doing in here, we're actually looking on all the workloads, CPU and RAM usage. And based on this data set, we can tell you guys whether the workloads are right size, over provisioned or under provisioned. And I can already share with you guys, and based on the global benchmarks we have seen, I would say more than 90% of the organizations out there are over provisioning their workloads massively. Okay, so let me quickly explain what we see here. So this is just some raw data about the data sets. This is divided into CPU sizing and RAM sizing. So if you look on CPU sizing, this widget will show you out of all of your workloads how many are over provisioned, how many are right provisioned, and how many are under provisioned. And the same is true for RAM. Okay, so how many are over, right, and under provisioned. And the second widget will show you by the numbers, right? So in this case, out of almost 300 CPUs, only half of them are actually being utilized. And the same is true for RAM, right? So in my case, we're utilizing, or actually we are allocating almost 1 terabytes of RAM, but out of this, almost 400 gigabytes are not actually being utilized. Okay, so this is the high level overview. And the cool thing about this report is that you can see the recommendations on a per workload basis. Okay, so let's take one decent example here. Okay, let's look on this guy here, IOP LS01. So this is an interesting workload. Here we have 12 virtual CPUs assigned, and we have 32 gigs of RAM assigned. And you can see the recommendation is to radically downsize this VM, right? We suggest only 3 CPUs and 7 gigs of RAM. Now, the charts will actually explain the logic behind our recommendation here. Okay, so what we see in here for CPU and RAM, the blue line is the currently allocated number of CPUs and number of RAM installed. Okay, the dotted line is our actual suggestion. In this case, 3 virtual CPUs and 7 gigs of RAM. And the lower chart, it's the usage. It's the actual usage, whether it's CPU or RAM. Over the last 30 days, we have 1 data point per hour. Okay, so you can see in this case, this workload never crossed the 3 CPUs usage, or even got near to the 7 gigs of RAM. Okay, and statistically, we look also on the 95th percentile to eliminate any major peaks which might affect the calculation. And you can see, I think, really intuitively how we justify the recommendations. Okay, and you can see it again on a per workload basis. I can tell you guys that we have seen customers already saving, tons of virtual CPUs and reclaiming hundreds of gigabytes of RAM back to the clusters by using the stats you see in here. There is one other interesting note I want to mention here. The CPU and RAM data is based on the agent, the in-guest agent data, which means that this is super accurate. There are some products out there, and one notable example would be VMware VROps, where they offer kind of like similar right size recommendation, but the thing is their data set is not that accurate. And let me try and explain what I mean here. So I went back to the real-time console. I'm looking now on the computers. Let me switch to the detailed view memory column preset. Okay. Now, this is currently sorted by active memory. Active memory is actually the VMware way of trying to guess how much RAM the workload is really using. Now, the thing is that it's not really accurate. And you can see a really nice example. This just happens to be our VMware vCenter. You can see that from the Windows perspective, it's utilizing half of the RAM, meaning almost 16 gigs of RAM. But from VMware perspective, using the active memory metric, it's only using 6 gigs of RAM. And you know, the sad thing is that the VMware VROps right sizing recommendations are based on this metric, which means they're not really accurate. So I think this basically means that the ControlUp sizing recommendation reports, you know, besides the fact it's intuitive and I think pretty easy to use, it's also based on super accurate data. Okay, now the prerequisite here is to upload at least 2 weeks worth of data. And once you do that, you will get the data set you see in here. Okay, whether it's the high level numbers, how much RAM you can reclaim, how many virtual CPUs you can reclaim, and whether it's the per workload analysis and the per workload suggestions. Okay, any questions on this before we move on to the assessment reports?
We did have a couple questions about automating the reports. Is there a method to generate and automate them and get them sent daily, weekly, monthly, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So we have a scheduled report feature. It would be available on any of the supported reports. So you can, you know, go ahead and click on the automate. Oh, sorry, it's not available in my environment here. But basically, clicking on the automate feature will allow you to schedule a report, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, and you will get an email with the CSV download link containing the actual data. So yeah, we fully support automated reports. Okay, so environment assessment, right? This is another huge report we just recently added, and I think once you'll see what we have in here, you will wait the initial 2 minutes, which will obviously get improved further down the line. Okay, so what we're dealing with here. So again, what we do here, we crunch 1 month worth of data, and in this time, you know, unlike the size recommendation where we specifically look on computer CPU and RAM usage, here we look on the entire data sets, whether it's application usage, session, resource consumption, host data, everything. And what we've shown here is various widgets which will show you insights about your environment based on this 1 month worth of data. Okay, so let's look on a few examples in here. The top bar will show you some stats about data collection. So how many virtualization hosts we cover, how many VMs, how many computers with ControlUp agents, what was the number of unique client names and unique users that were logged onto your environment in the past month, etc. By the way, this data is pretty relevant for license calculations, whether it's for Citrix or Office. This is the accurate number of unique client names and unique users in your environment, and anyone who ever dealt with per device or per user calculations knows that this is really interesting stats, right? Because if you have more unique devices than users, you might have to switch license method, etc. Now the widgets are divided to all kinds of different widget types. Some will show you resource usage over time, like these guys you see here. Some will show you the distribution of the OS or host version. Okay, in this case, you can see in my environment the distribution based on hypervisor versions, and the same is true for the managed computers. It's a pretty great way to kind of detect, you know, old OSs or kind of monitor the progress of a migration project, etc. One of the coolest widgets I really like is the sessions resources usage trends. This contains some really important metrics for user sessions. So one would be the active sessions over time. So this is the number, each data point here represents the number of active sessions logged onto your environment at any given time. The other one with the login duration average over time. So it's a great way to kind of look on trends, if things are improving or not, in a 1 month time frame. Same goes for bandwidth usage, again, session bandwidth usage, and finally session latency. Okay, and everything you see here is drillable, right? So you can always click on the relevant widget, and Insights will drill down to the relevant report to show you the fine-grained data. Okay, in this case, we are dealing with login duration, so Insights will show me the sessions, and for each session, we can see the login duration on a per session basis. Okay, so the same, drill down behavior is true for any of the widgets you see in the environment assessment report. Okay, so again, we can drill down and see the data. In this case, it's 1 month worth of data. So query time might be a bit long depending on the size of your environment. In our case, we have, I think, more than tens of thousands of sessions, so it might take a while. Top applications. This is pretty cool. Here you will see the top 20 applications, and when you highlight a specific app, you will see 2 nice KPIs. One would be the number of unique users that launched this app over the last month, and the other KPI would be the total number of instances. Okay, so you can see in our case lots of Chrome instances, lots of Java instances, etc. This entire section is a bit similar to the sizing recommendation, but this time we can also see data coming in from the hosts tables, right? So what you see in here, this is the assigned CPU gigahertz we have from all the various hypervisors, and this is the actual usage. The same is true for RAM. So again, this is another perspective of how much our environment is actually utilizing CPU and RAM resources, whether it's for the hosts or the virtual machines. And finally, what you see below is another, from my perspective, very useful widgets. This would be the top consumers for each entity we support. So this includes hosts, computers, users, applications. So for example, I can click on disk IO in here, and I will see which are the top IO consumers based on 1 month worth of data. So this would be the, kind of like the average IO usage for this user over time. And you can see the top consumers, the same for CPU, for RAM, and also obviously the slowest logons. I would say the users affected from the slowest logons. Okay, and the same is true for applications. In our case, you will not be surprised, that I know Robocopy is one of the most intensive IO users out there, and again, the same is true for computers and hosts. You can see again the top consumers over 1 month worth of data. Okay, so that's the environment assessment. Down the line, we are going to add support for a fully exported version, whether it's PDF or a doc word, so you can further customize it. But I think even before the ability to export this data, the real live, the live view here is very insightful for lots of environments. Okay, so that was the new insights reports. We are almost top of the hour. Chris, any last questions about the console or the reports we have just shown?
Question about reporting. Does Insights have Netscaler reports for sessions?
Okay, so yeah. So Netscaler data collection was introduced in 7.1, so like only 2 months ago. We are starting to collect the data. Reports are not available yet, but we are going to close this gap in the upcoming Insights releases.
And another one, they have a question on reporting session usage by delivery group. Is there any way to accomplish that?
Okay, that's a decent question. I totally get that. So currently for session activity, we have 2 filters available. One would be the folders, okay, what you see in here. Now the folders do not currently include the delivery groups. Okay, so for now, as a workaround, you can create manual folders like you see in here. And then under the Zendesk website, you can just populate it with the relevant VDAs. So you will essentially be able to use the folder selector to select manually created delivery group folders, and the other filter is computers. We are going to integrate the Zendesk data and insights, and then we'll be able to expose delivery group filters, but it's not supported yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Excellent. So you know, Stephanie and Chris, that's about it from my end. I really hope you find the new version interesting, the new additions. I really appreciate the questions. That's some really great feedback. And yeah, great. Thanks. Any other notes from you guys would be appreciated.
Okay, thank you, Yoni. Let me grab the screen back really quickly. Just have a couple of housekeeping details to go over. Really quickly, I threw a couple of links in the chat window for everyone. There's a link to a forum thread on mycugc.org. So if you have more questions after today, feel free to ask them in the forum. We'll make sure that ControlUp sees them, and I'll also post the Q&A from today in that forum thread, and that's also where you'll find out who is the prize winner from today's webinar. So if you opted in for a chance to win a pair of Bose Quiet Comfort 35 headphones, we will announce that winner in that forum thread as well as on Twitter. So be sure that to follow us on Twitter at myCUGC. And I've also put in the chat window for you a link to a survey. It's short and anonymous and just for CUGC use. So we love to get your feedback on today's webinar and any thoughts you have on future webinars or content on mycugc.org. And with that, I just want to thank Yoni once more for being with us again today. And thanks to Chris for keeping an eye on those questions. There were lots of questions in there today, so good job on that. And hope to see all of you again at another webinar at myCUGC. Thanks, everyone.